Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to ioRadio with your host, Adam Smith. Today on the show, I am interviewing a French-Canadian who goes by the name of Lou. And he is one of the many independent crypto investigators that are out there trying to make sense of the market. And he has a rather interesting theory about what he thinks is, quote, the mechanism behind the biggest fraud of all time. And he believes that there is a kind of a conspiracy between Cantor Fitzgerald, their CEO, Tether, MicroStrategy, and other companies to manipulate the market and liquidate people's positions in order to be able to create liquidity for Tether and their other operations. So he's got an interesting theory. And again, this is only a theory. This is just one person's opinion, and we're going to ask him about it. But he's made a post on our Buttcoin titled The Mechanism Behind the Biggest Fraud of All Time, which has detailed links and sources for all of his arguments and his theories about how these crypto firms are colluding with each other in the background, manipulating the market, manipulating the price to be able to create certain kinds of market conditions that favor them and get other people's liquidity. So let's listen to what Lou has to say, and you let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so welcome, Mr. Lou Reed. I don't know if you want to use any other name or you want to just go by that.
Yeah, Lou, it's okay.
Okay, Lou. So you've been around on some of the Reddit crypto critical forums for a while, and I've noticed you've made some posts here and there. And you made a post entitled
A mechanism behind the biggest fraud of all time.
Right, the mechanism behind the biggest fraud of all time. And I thought it was very interesting and well put together with a lot of sources. So I stickied it to the page, and there's a little bit of a discussion going on. And I thought I might reach out to you and just talk about it and get a little bit of info on what motivates you and why you started doing all of this research and what your thoughts are on things. So first off, you want to tell us how old you are, where you're from, as specific or as vague as you want?
Yeah, I'm in Quebec, Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in my late 20s. I studied psychology. I have a bachelor's degree in it, and now I'm studying computer science. So I will finish my bachelor degree next year.
I gotcha. So interesting, psychology and technology, which is probably not a pretty useful combination, don't you think?
Well, I don't think it's related at all. Yeah. In fact, it was I was kind of tired of psychology. I mean, everything I got from studying it, I still have it with me, but I wanted to try something else. So yeah.
And how did you learn about crypto and develop opinions about that?
So I think, like a lot of people, I just started looking at crypto during the pandemic, during the biggest boom that it ever had, and I just dig in Bitcoin. And at first, I was a believer, if you will, and then I started trading, and I made a bit of money, so I was happy for myself, but I I always saw some things in the market that was just red flags for me. So now I think it was in 2021 during Christmas time. I um, I went into the rabbit hole of Terra Luna, and I wanted to talk about it with people online, but every time I was pushing points about it, I was just getting banned, and people didn't want to hear what I found about it. And now, in 2022, we all know what happened to it.
So you're talking about Tether USDT.
Yes.
So for those that may not be aware, the crypto market is kind of not integrated in with traditional finance. It's kind of adjacent to it, but it borrows a lot of concepts and pretends to model itself after the traditional finance industry with these brokerage houses where you can trade crypto, these crypto exchanges that kind of appear to be like traditional banks and brokerage houses, but they don't really deal in money because they're restricted because of anti-money laundering laws. And this has precipitated an in-between medium that's called stable coins, and Tether, aka USDT, is one of these stable coins. Basically, it's some kind of a third-party entity that agrees to act as its own bank, and it takes money in and issues these stable coins, and then the stable coins get traded around on the crypto exchanges as if they're money. The problem is this whole industry is largely unregulated, and I guess that's what concerned you, right? There's just billions and billions of dollars of USDT floating around, and nobody really knows where the backing for that is, right?
Yeah, and they keep printing billions of dollars per week, and now it just propped up the market. Every time they print billions of unbacked USDTs, I mean, the market just go up.
Right, right. And it's kind of ironic because crypto people love to complain about inflation in the traditional market, monetary inflation. And they have
Yes.
their own out of control money printer, which is the stable coins. And they've never been audited. The original one was Tether in 2014. And I just checked today, and there's now close to 150 billion tethers out there. And that's just USDT. Apparently, there's tens of billions of USDT in other denominations too. Um, there's also 61.5 billion in USDC. That's another stable coin. And the premise is for every one tether that's issued, there's supposed to be $1 in reserve that's supposed to be accessible because that's the whole point, right? And the problem
Yes.
is that these reserves have never been audited. And
Yes.
Tether has always claimed that they were one-to-one backed. Many years ago, the secretary, what is it, the Attorney General of New York filed a lawsuit against them because there was
Yes.
reason to believe they were lying about their reserves. And I guess I don't know if it was discovery, how they found out, but they did find out that Tether was lying. And then Tether was sanctioned and banned from doing business in New York. And I guess now they're technically banned in the United States, or they've just voluntarily refused to acknowledge that they service Americans to just avoid the scrutiny.
Yeah, but now they have other options. Like they use Cantor Fitzgerald as a proxy. So now they can serve US customers through Cantor Fitzgerald.
Okay, so let's talk about the different players that are involved in this. We know that the stablecoin market is basically pumping up the crypto industry because most crypto trades are not between dollars and crypto, they're between stablecoins that are pretending to be proxies for dollars. So, how does you know, it's like the perfect crime, right? Who if you can print these stable coins and just pretend you have the money, you can act like you do have the money, but obviously at some point if there's a big enough run on the bank, the whole thing collapses. And like most Ponzi schemes, there hasn't been a big enough run, so it hasn't completely collapsed yet. So you have some interesting theories, but let's go over Cantor Fitzgerald and how they fit into the situation with Tether.
Before Tether did business with Cantor Fitzgerald, we they used the Deltec Bank in the Bahamas. So I think their partnership began in 2023 or late 2022, not long after the FTX collapse.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I made my post in the beginning it was when I found out about the declaration of Brandon L. Arnold, which is someone at Celsius. So Tether and Celsius are in a lawsuit. I think it's Celsius against Tether, and the and
So
Just
Celsius
let
was
me check.
another crypto exchange that collapsed, and they were
Yes.
offering DeFi where you would stake your crypto with them and you would get some kind of a return, right?
Yeah, but what in the beginning, I think it's in 2020, Celsius and Tether wanted to partner, but Tether they wanted something from Celsius. And this thing was to have access to repo notes. So the repurchase agreement market,
Okay.
you know what I'm talking about?
No, explain it for our listeners.
Okay, so what Tether wanted to do is borrow money from the repo market by I think it's a deal between you buy securities, but you have U.S. Treasury and collateral. So, and at the end of the day, you just reimburse the securities and give back the U.S. Treasuries with a small interest.
And I guess this
So,
is also a way to avoid taxation too, paying taxes.
on that, I don't know.
Because I'm under the impression that, like the super rich, one of the ways they avoid paying income taxes is that rather than liquidate wealth for capital, they borrow against it, and so therefore they don't necessarily have to pay income tax on those, on them.
Yeah, sure. But in the context of Tether and Cantor Federal, I don't know. I
Mhm.
don't know really.
It's
I don't know
interesting
if
how
it.
everything is leveraged, right? Everybody wants to just leverage
Yeah,
everything.
and even on the tethers at the stations, like the fake audits that they market them as audits, but in
Right.
reality, it's all attestations, which is very different.
Right. An attestation basically says, here's what the client told me on this day. I
Exact,
trust what they, what I'm verifying. This is what they told me. No, there's no checks and balances, right?
exact.
They claim to have a certain amount of money in a certain accounts, but the problem with that is that you don't really know where that money came from. You don't even know if it's theirs. They just said, here's how much money we have in these accounts on this day, and they verified that. And obviously, your research has shown that one of the situations that seems to happen is obviously Tether does have some liquidity because they've been collecting money from some people and issuing tokens. We just don't know what percentage is real liquid and which percentage is printed out of thin air, but they apparently do have some liquidity.
What I think is happening is Tether doesn't have the money at first. They issue USDTs. And now they have a partnership with exchanges and market makers like Cumberland and Jump. And what they do is manipulate the price. So they they know they have the order flow of the traders. So they know their liquidation prices, their stop loss.
Right,
So they change the price on crypto assets to liquidate their traders' position. So you print money unbacked. You print USDTs, they're unbacked. You liquidate people's money, and now you use the liquidation to back the USDTs, and and the extra money of the liquidations, you use it as profits.
right. And you're also using that the liquidity as you're moving it around to. This is the point that I was making before, which is Tether has some liquidity, but they may be moving it around. They may let Binance use it for their attestation, then they may move it over to Celsius.
Yeah,
We
yeah, yeah. The same USDT may be counted more than twice.
or the liquidity that's supposedly backing it. Like,
Yes.
Cantor says that there's a certain amount of T bills that Tether owns, but we don't really actually have evidence that those T bills are owned by Tether, and they could be bouncing around from different owners in different locations at certain times to say, here's where the money is.
Yeah, and because Tether is a foreign client for Cantor, they don't have to disclose they don't have to audit anything that Tether holds at Cantor.
So, what is the relationship between Cantor and Tether? Cantor is not; they are a financial firm, but they're not an accounting firm, right? So they don't do the audits. The audits are done
Yes.
by another entity, I think, out of Italy, called
Yeah,
BDO.
BDO, yeah.
And if you read their attestations, it just says, "Here's what they told us." But again, we don't know. And I can pull that up on the screen here. This is what I find interesting. Now, this is what BDO is reporting that Tether is telling them. They have 98 billion in T-bills. What do you know about that? What do we know? Do you know other than that?
I mean, we don't really know anything about this. They just say they have them. But one thing for sure is that Cantor has been one of the biggest U.S. Treasury dealer and a major player in U.S. repo markets. So that that relationship, I mean, it checks out. Cantor has always been a primary dealer in this market. So Tether could just use this Cantor status to have access to repo markets.
I got it. So Cantor is custodian of these T-bills,
Yes.
but we do not know for sure whether those T-bills belong to Tether.
And we don't even know if the T-bills are really there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we don't know much about all of this, and that's a big problem in my opinion.
Do you have any speculations as to if those T bills exist, who actually owns them?
I mean, there's more there's more chance that they are there than they are not. So, I mean, they're probably there, but the way that they bought them, I mean, that's the whole problem. I mean, if they are there or not, I mean, it's not that important in my opinion.
Right, but it is important whether or not that's actually the property of Tether, and the reason for that is because we we know from looking over like the entrails of companies like FTX that they were all commingling liquidity between themselves, right? Tether was sending liquidity to Binance or Bitfinex and Celsius and FTX, right? So when they needed a little bit of liquidity, it would just get shuffled around. We still don't really know who owns what, though.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've heard people tell me, "Oh, Tether owns those T bills, and here's how you can tell." Uh, um, if you look up, I think on the Treasury site, it'll show allocation of T bills by country or something, and it'll
Yes.
show a certain amount of T bills that are associated with, I guess, the British Virgin Isles, which I think is where Tether is incorporated.
Tether, I think they moved to El Salvador, and before that they were on the Cayman Islands or
Okay,
British
maybe
Virgin Islands. I don't remember.
I can't remember either, but I remember somebody pointing me to one of the country's allocations, and again, it's like, well, this only shows that there's X amount of T bills originating from that country. It still doesn't show who owns them. It just we seem to keep going around in circles there, trying to figure that out. It's frustrating. So tell us more about this theory that you have about how Tether is operating in harmony with Cantor Fitzgerald, and where does MicroStrategy come into this too?
I mean, before Cantor Fitzgerald did business with Tether, they didn't have any investments or maybe like less than 1% in crypto-related stocks. But since 2023, all their portfolio is like over 30% in MSTR stocks, as I remember, and they have call options on it, put options on it. So they can just move the price with USDT, the price of Bitcoin, for example, and then uh, when Bitcoins move, MSTR, IBIT, Rumble, etc. They, they just they just move in the same direction. So they have so they can know in advance where they want to push price. And then, so, okay, for example, uh, Tether wants to liquidate short positions. So they're going to push price, Bitcoin's price, much higher. But before doing that, they will tell Cantor to take some money and add to MSTR position, for example. So after buying MicroStrategy stocks, you push up Bitcoin's price with USDTs. MicroStrategy rises, and then Cantor as a profit and Tether as a profit, liquidating short positions. So, for example, you're showing me the portfolio of Cantor
Mm-hmm.
and Rumble. The position in Rumble, we know for sure that it's under Tether's. I don't know how to say it, but it's Tether's.
So that's an acquisition of shares that are for the client Tether because they had to reveal that because of some kind of
Yeah,
disclosure.
exactly. Yeah, because the share in Rumble is more than 5%. So they didn't have the choice to disclose it. They had to.
Mm-hmm. Now, what's interesting is where would Tether get the liquidity to do that? Is that assumed to be their liquidity pool, and instead of it being really liquid, they're putting it into the shares of a company? Is this part of their reserves?
I have some hypothesis, but I don't know for sure. So maybe it comes from the repo market. So they borrow money on a daily basis to put this money in the stock market, or it's coming from Tether's profits when they liquidate the traders' positions.
So they're not going to admit that it could possibly be just actual client liquidity that they're playing with.
I mean, if you look at the history of their positions at Cantor, I mean, Cantor didn't add exposure to crypto, but when Tethers came to the game, everything's changed.
Mm-hmm.
All their portfolio, I mean, do you know any other banks that have so much of their portfolio in crypto related stocks? I mean, it's crazy.
Now, Cantor is a private company, right? So they don't. Do they have to divulge all of their holdings? What exactly are we seeing here?
I'm not so sure. Yeah, it's not a public company. You cannot invest in it. So I don't know if all of their positions are there, but I know they have like they have to disclose how many assets under management they have.
Oh, I got you.
So you can go on their site, and I think the last time I checked, it was around 14 billions. So
Mm-hmm.
if you check the portfolio list of assets, I mean 20% in MicroStrategy, and the value is like I don't remember, but we could check if it checks out.
I got you. And so your theory is that there's just basically a whole bunch of insider trading going on here. You don't have enough evidence to know for sure, but you're speculating that based on the what you're seeing, these relationships and some of the dynamics, that it sure looks like there's some front running and stuff like that going on.
Yes, exactly. I mean, uh, we know that there is some insider trading going on. That's for sure because you can see it in Tether's practices in the past. I mean, when the FTX collapse happened, we we had so much information about what was really going on in the background.
Right.
So, for example, I mean, one of the piece of evidence I saw that was most telling is they had a group chat exchanges. So Binance, CZ from Binance, SBF from FTX, and the CEO of Kraken, Tether, and I mean, there was a lot of big players in crypto in this chat, And when the FTX collapse was in the beginning, SBF tried to swap 250,000 uh, USDT for USDC, and CZ from Binance didn't like this at all, and Tether neither. And I mean, it was like, I don't know how to say it, but they weren't happy, so they wanted to kick out SBF.
So they
Do
were
you
in bed
understand what
with
I'm telling?
they were in bed with Tether, and they felt like moving over to USDC, a competitive stablecoin thing, was kind of like
Yeah, but
treason
they
or something.
they also were afraid of collapsing the USDT because of this swap.
Right.
Which I mean, it's 250,000. I mean, it's nothing
Yeah.
if you look at the supposedly $150 billion they have. So
Right.
something's up.
So what else? What else do we know about what's going on here? I see. Obviously, we know that all these players have actually been sanctioned in the past for fraud, one way or another. And
Yes.
where does MicroStrategy come into this?
Well, MicroStrategy is a pyramid scheme, and now you can use it as a way of storing and and adding to your profits by insider trading, like I explained before.
Uh huh.
So it's a way to and I mean something really which I mean it's worrying a lot is that a lot of people who are not aware of what's going on have some of their money in this because MSTR is now included in the Nasdaq 100. So what that means is that some people who contribute to society, like teachers in Ontario, in Canada, they have some of their pension funds linked to Tether and MSTR, Cantor
Right.
Fitzgerald, Bitcoin, etc. So I mean,
That's a concern.
it's yeah, because they use public money to raise up these uh, this pyramid scheme. So.
So tell me how you believe that Tether is manipulating the price of Bitcoin. Do you have any specifics into how that process might happen? I mean, we all have our general theories.
I mean, it's just how market works. You know, if you're the biggest player in the game and you have access to the most liquidity, you can just push price anywhere you want. And you can see this on using tools like Bookmap and any tool that shows liquidity in real time. You can see something's going on. I mean, I have a lot of the time I have a Bookmap open on my computer and I can just see the new orders coming in and coming out of the market.
Well, when you say that, so one of the problems I'm aware of is that all of these crypto exchanges, none of them are properly regulated. They don't have any transparency. They don't have any oversight.
Exactly.
Whatever their order books are doing is what they choose to publish. Right. This is not like a traditional bank or a brokerage house, which has provisions where the SEC and other agencies can come in and monitor things. The crypto industry has no checks and balances. So when you say you're monitoring liquidity, you're just monitoring what they're telling you, right? You have no way of verifying that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
And so, how many? Do you have any idea who's driving it? There's obviously just a handful of primary exchanges. You know, you've got Kraken, you've got you know Binance and Bitfinex and Coinbase. Any idea if one of them is like the authoritative one and everybody else follows along or anything like that?
Well, since 2018, Binance has been like the most the biggest of them all. So I think that their weight is more than the others.
Mm-hmm.
But as of today, I know that Binance is like it's banned in Canada at least. I don't know. I think it's banned also in Europe and in the US. So I mean, if you look at the volume, which I know is more than 90% wash trading, uh,
And there's
if you
peer
look at the
review.
volume, Binance is still the biggest today.
Yeah, there's obviously some peer reviewed studies out there that have looked at the trading volume and identified it as mainly
Yeah.
being artificial.
There's one study very interesting. I don't remember from who, but it looked at the pump in 2018 or 19, and they assessed that it couldn't have been possible if Tether wasn't using bots to artificially push up Bitcoin price. So I don't know if I can find it, but let
Yeah,
me check this
yeah.
a
I
minute.
think we have um, referenced that before. There's a number of studies like that went into it.
Yeah.
So MicroStrategy, you have Michael Saylor, which obviously I've done a lot of stuff on him on my podcast, talking about some of the crazy things that he's done. He's turned his public company into basically a kind of a highly leveraged ETF for Bitcoin. So it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that he's basically allowed people in the traditional finance market to kind of speculate on Bitcoin through shares of MicroStrategy, and then in the background, you're suggesting that in combination with Cantor Fitzgerald and Tether and some of these exchanges, they're manipulating the price up and down and using the exposure on MicroStrategy to be able to make more money as well.
Yeah, that's the hypothesis.
And now Cantor has created another shell operation that's a copy of MicroStrategy.
Yeah, with Jack Mahler, Howard Lutnick's son. So Howard Lutnick is the CEO of Cantor. He's now the U.S. Secretary of Commerce. And so his son, Brandon, yeah, he created the fund 21 Capital with Tether, Jack Mahler, SoftBank, and Cantor.
So this is a similar fund that's modeled in the way that MicroStrategy
Yeah,
is.
yeah, it's exactly the same thing. They issue shares and they buy Bitcoin with it.
Mm-hmm. So where do you think this is all going?
Man, it's gonna end very badly, as Buffett says. It's gonna go down fast. And the risk is that, like I told earlier, is like people have money in this, but they don't even know
Right,
it.
indirectly through the
Yeah,
S&P 500 or Nasdaq or something like that, right?
yeah.
But let's say um, how much exposure? What's the worst case scenario? Because one of the things that I point out when people talk about, oh, there could be bailouts or this or that, is that all? I believe that like all of crypto could disappear tomorrow, and it really wouldn't affect a typical business product or service that any of us use. Unlike, say, in 2008, when the housing market and the banks behind that collapsed, that really did affect everyday life. But I
Yes.
don't know how ingrained crypto is. Now you're suggesting it is ingrained and it may be becoming more integrated in with traditional finance. But
Yeah, exactly.
if
I mean, it's worse and worse.
well, let's
So
say that
that's what's worrying.
MicroStrategy right now is the only entity in Nasdaq that's exposed like this, and it's the Nasdaq 100. So that means it's roughly just 1% of that fund.
Yeah, something like that. But uh, with the speed at which it's growing, I mean, it's beginning to be worse and worse.
Mm-hmm.
So if you let this go in for too long, it's gonna be catastrophic.
Well, do you see it going for too long? Because it seems to me that once Bitcoin hit 100K, it's just really struggled to keep going up. Has it hit a
Yeah,
wall?
because yeah, but I mean, the way the market works, I mean, even if you don't you, if you use a traditional markets, the market used to it, it works the same way. I mean, they have to let people take positions. I mean, they cannot just push price to $1 million per Bitcoin because there's gonna be too much people in profits, and people will want to cash out and they don't have the money. So I mean, it takes time to push the price higher and higher and higher
Right.
because they have to liquidate people's money.
But doesn't it? I mean, I kind of feel that it's just getting harder and harder and harder to pump that much. It used to be that Tether could print 1 million and pump the market, and then it became 10 million, and now they'll print 1 billion, and it doesn't seem to make as much of an impact. It almost feels like it's getting exponentially harder. I mean, people point to
Yeah,
Bitcoin 5xing and 10xing, and I just can't see. I can't see it going from 100K to 200K. I can't even see it 2xing anytime soon in the current climate. And I'm trying to figure out how much adoption from the traditional markets could actually happen to where that would be. I don't know. It just seems like we're
yeah,
kind of in the late stage of this.
yeah. I think so too. But you're right about the fact that it's harder and harder to push price higher because you need you. I mean, the liquidity in Bitcoin is like 1 or 2% of the market cap. It's something ridiculous like this.
Uh huh.
So you need if the market cap grows, well, the liquidity grows too. So if you want to influence price, you have to have more money. So, I mean, it's harder and harder. So you have to incentivize people to take position in the market so you can steal their money.
Uh huh. And that's the thing, though. I'm looking around and I'm like, where else is there more liquidity to be had? I mean, by the time you're begging governments to adopt, and governments
Yes.
have adopted, and it's still become a failure. El Salvador's adoption of Bitcoin has proven to not be positive. Um, and the United States' so-called strategic Bitcoin reserve, at least at this point, has just turned out to be them not giving back the crypto that they've seized.
Yeah.
So that's not bringing in more liquidity. Where obviously they're trying to get more liquidity from more corporations holding crypto on their balance sheets. But
Yeah, that's where MicroStrategy and 21 Capital comes in. I mean, it's the new liquidity they need because the government. I mean, I think it's Arizona lately that the governor vetoed a bill about investing in Bitcoin, and he just said no,
right,
no, not gonna do this. And people were kind of upset. I mean, but Bitcoiners were upset.
right. But I mean, when you buy Bitcoin, it doesn't do anything for you. It doesn't produce any value or output. It doesn't
I mean,
create
it's the
anything.
opposite. It's the opposite. It's wasting the resources.
Right. And I think it's a pretty hard sell to get governments to do that. Now, companies that are very cash rich that maybe just need additional vehicles to store their cash so that they can avoid paying dividends or taxes, I guess they could do that. But how
I
many
mean,
how
if
many
you're not
companies are there
corrupt,
like that though? Is there, I don't see a ton of companies needing to do that.
of course, they can just put their money in U.S. Treasuries instead, which is safe. You have interest on it, and government can use this money to fund public services, infrastructure, and so on. So, I mean, anyone with a mind can just know that you can put your money in something much safer that doesn't waste resources and enable the government uh, to serve the public. So
So this is your theory. How do you think we can find out more information confirming your theory? What could happen? What can happen? What should happen that will make your theory seem more plausible or prove that it's true?
I mean, uh, the only way we can know for sure if it's all of these entities get fully audited. I mean, it's not gonna happen. So, one way you can look at it is like, what happens when you Tether issues new USDT? You can look at Bitcoin's price, and recently, something very bizarre happened. I mean, MicroStrategy stocks just
Sorry, my dog's puppies.
so lately, MicroStrategy just have had a big run, a big rally, and while Bitcoin wasn't moving at all. So I think that is telling, because it means that MicroStrategy is front running. I mean, MicroStrategy stock price is front running Bitcoin's price, which if if those entities what they say is true, it should be the opposite. Bitcoin should rise, and then MicroStrategy should rise
Right.
because my Bitcoin has risen. But it's not what we're seeing right now. It's the opposite.
And I guess one problem is, despite all of these red flags, we now seem to have an SEC that is really not interested in doing much enforcement.
Yeah, because the SEC chairman is friend with Trump. So I
And of
mean,
course,
Trump has no incentives to break down on crypto.
right, he's got his own crypto schemes.
Exactly.
He's just, made the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, now Secretary of Commerce. So
I mean,
you have all the foxes guarding the hen houses.
yeah, and one of the reasons Trump did so well in the last election in the US is because all the crypto lobbyists campaigned for him. I
Right.
mean, I don't think people realize the amount of money that they send to Trump. And when these kind of entities uh, give money to a campaign like this, they expect something in return.
Right.
And
So,
I think we're seeing this in action.
so you believe that when the market finally does correct, it's going to be pretty rapid and
Yeah, I think
catastrophic.
it's gonna, yeah, but I don't think it's gonna happen tomorrow or next week or next year. I think we're in this until a new administration comes in the US.
So you feel like this thing can operate on its own momentum for several more years, despite the fact that it's not really solvent.
Yeah, I think it's unstoppable at the moment,
You so
for real.
you think that it won't burn out. It has to be it'll have to be taken out by authorities enforcing existing fraud
Yeah, but
laws.
it's like any fraud in history. I mean,
But
people don't have.
a lot of frauds do kind of, collapse. Ponzi schemes will eventually collapse if you run out of greater fools, if you run out of liquidity.
Exactly, but the thing is that it's when people want their money back that the scheme collapses.
Right. And also, if you look at the Bernie Madoff thing, right? People wanted their
Yes,
money back as a result of the 2008 recession. And it seems
exactly.
like we're heading into another similar recession now. So, couldn't that be a catalyst for causing the collapse?
It could be, but I don't think Trump is gonna let this happen. I mean, look at the U-turn he did on tariffs when the market was collapsing.
Yeah, but he hasn't did a complete U-turn. I mean, he still has tariffs up on China. And obviously, you
Yes,
being a Canadian, you can probably attest to the fact that even if he did reverse some of his tariffs on Canada, there's still damage done, right? There's damage done to the trade relationship, there's damage done to the reputation. What you are
yes.
feeling, because my impression is that there's a lot of commerce between the United States and Canada that will not be coming back, regardless of whether Trump reverses these tariffs, because Canadians are pissed off. They don't feel like they should have been treated this way. It's like a girlfriend or a boyfriend that constantly threatens to break up with you, it's like fine. I'm going to start seeing other people already. If this is the way
Yes.
you're going to treat me.
Yeah, and that's what's happening.
I mean, how are you seeing it where you are? What are you noticing very specific boycotts or changes in policy?
Well, I mean, we just recently had an election, and the conservatives were winning by in the polls. But when Trump went in, like I think Canadians just told themselves, okay, we don't want something like this, so they elected Mark Carney with the Liberal Party, and I mean, one of the reason I think Canadians changed their mind is because they want this situation to be resolved. And I think a lot of people in Canada aren't mad at the United States per se, but more at Trump's administration.
Trump and the Republicans, yeah, and I've heard that and I've felt that, and I'm very thankful that y'all do realize that, because a lot of us feel like we've been held hostage. I haven't voted
Yes.
I haven't voted for a Republican in 30 years, but you know they do control a good bit of the media and they can set the narrative, and it's frustrating. So I'm glad at least you recognize it's not all of us. We're trying to do what we can, but I certainly don't blame Canadians for being upset and wanting to say, work deals with trade partners that actually honor their agreements.
Yeah, but the impacts are real. I mean, people are losing their jobs. I mean, in Quebec, personally, I don't see the impact, but when I read about it, I know that in Ontario, with the automobile industry, a lot of people are gonna lose their jobs because of this, because they don't manufacture enough, and I mean the companies don't need uh, so much labor if they don't sell more products.
So, what do you think is the general stance or the plan on the part of Canada? Are they going to try to just bide their time until they can get a new administration that's going to unfuck everything, or are they going to try to insulate themselves from the chaos that is the United States, thinking that while it's particularly bad with Trump, it might not be a bad idea to assume that the next administration might not be any better?
Uh, I'm not sure, but I know for sure that Canada t is trying to open trade more with Europe country. So I mean, I think I think in people's mind, it's like, I mean, the tariffs are will be there for at least 3 years while Trump is there, but I think it's like temporary in the sense that Canadians don't think it's going to continue this way after Trump. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, and I would tend to agree, except what we saw when Biden got into power was that he did not reverse Trump's tariffs in his first term, which I think many of us really feel that was a huge mistake. I could see both sides of it, right? If a president comes in and undoes everything the previous president does, he undermines his own authority to negotiate deals. So it's a kind of a catch-22. But obviously, Biden should have rolled back a lot more of the things that Trump did, because it seems like that created some of the inflation that he was blamed for.
Yeah, but in this aspect, I'm not really an expert, I would say. I mean, I don't know a lot about how the tariffs plays out and
Right. Yeah.
everything.
I
So,
think most of us really don't know what's going to happen. Well, this was very cool talking with you. If you do, you have anything else that you want to bring up about your concerns about the crypto market or what's going on? What did we not cover?
well, I think that the most outrageous thing is very like I mean, I don't know for the United States, but I know that in Canada we we must uh, put a bit of our money in pension funds. I mean, you're obligated to put a portion of your earnings in a retirement income. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes. Hmm.
So
I mean, we have
if this
Social
money,
Security, which is kind of like that.
yeah, so but if this money goes in the pyramid scheme that is crypto with the MSTR, Cantor, Tether, etc., I mean, this is a big problem, and I mean, it's like a Bernie Madoff scheme. If it takes a crisis to crash it, I mean, I expect the government to not bail out
Yeah.
this the collapse.
I don't
But
expect it either, but you never know anything under this administration. But
yeah, that's what worries me.
uh-huh.
I mean, people's money, people works, contributes to society, and they're gonna just lose it all because some people wanted to get very rich on other people's back. So yeah, I think that's the most worrying thing.
I gotcha. Well, it was good talking with you. And I really think you did a lot of really good work here in providing a lot of information on these theories. And I hope
Yeah,
that you,
thank you.
I guess you're going to continue to gather more evidence
Yeah,
and
for sure.
and let us know. Yeah, I kind of feel that the most that we can do is educate people, because
Yeah.
crypto really runs on propaganda. It doesn't have any substance to it. You can't point to something and say, here's what it does for society. It's all about marketing and hype. So if we,
And it's like a cult,
yeah,
really.
absolutely. It's more like a religion than it is a technology or an investment.
Yeah,
And
really, because hey, just look at the Michael Saylors on X. I mean, it's troubling.
yeah, it's very, very crazy. I don't know if you saw my reaction video to his speech about the strategic Bitcoin reserve, but it was pretty crazy. Every time he made a logical fallacy like begging the question, I slapped it up on the screen, and over the course of like 30 minutes, the whole screen is just obscured with all of the little buzzwords that he created.
No, I didn't see it,
If
but
you
send me.
Yeah, if you go to ioRadio.org, it's not this last podcast, but the one before that. He
Okay.
does a presentation on the strategic Bitcoin reserve, and he's certainly a colorful character. I have a lot of fun with him whenever he shows up at these crypto conventions, remixing his audio. I guess that interesting. There's definitely a lot of weird characters in this industry, and I think that probably helps them get the attention they need. But Lou, thanks for chatting, and let's keep in touch. And if you have
Okay.
any more information that you come across, be sure to share it. And obviously, we'll give it some exposure on our anti-crypto communities. And that's it. I want to thank you for
Yeah,
coming on.
yeah. Thank you for having me, Adam.
Sure.
It's really I appreciate it, and it was my first time doing this, and I hope I can do it more often. I will practice my English more, so I can better explain my position.
Well, I didn't have any trouble not understanding you, and it's better you speak in English than me try to do French, which would be really
Yeah,
bad.
yeah, yeah. That's for sure.
Once again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening. And be sure to subscribe to both the YouTube channel as well as our podcasts, which are on all the major platforms: iTunes, Amazon Music, Spotify. Just search for ioRadio, and you should be able to find it. Or you go to the website, ioRadio.org, you'll find links to all of the podcast platforms and everything like that. And be sure to visit the YouTube channel. It's YouTube/American Scream Video. You can find a link to that at our main site, which is ioRadio.org, or the site for my documentary, which is called Blockchain Innovation or Illusion. That's at blockchainii.com. And again, thanks very much for your support. And if you would like to appear on the show, or you want to debate, or you want to discuss anything, email adam@ioRadio.org.